whenever you are ready. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's pictures. So it's cool. That looks nice. You ready for it? So we're doing this right now? Thank you. Let's do it.
Hey, John. Hey, bud, how you doing? Yeah, absolutely.
I'm okay. How are you?
Maybe. Eventually.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome you to the Hampton-Wilbraham Regional School District School Committee meeting. It is 6:30 p.m. Access channel is recording. Is there anyone else here recording? Sarah. We will do roll call and I'll Cheryl Caruana. Here. Tim Collins.
Present.
Sean Kennedy. Lisa Murray. Here. Rich Bedecker.
Here.
Rossi. Michelle Boudreaux. If you please. We are going to begin with old business. Discussion.
The school committee information about maintaining the bleachers over the past several years. We also have some information, historical estimates. We've got at least two estimates on bleacher replacement. We have here tonight who has responsible for implementing many of the repairs, Mike Messier. So I would turn it over to them to explain what's and answer. Tell us of the long to replace the bleachers.
So I was asked to get some information as far as what we've repairs, what we've been doing. Invoices from board 2025 as far as boards and what we've been doing. So basically, so everybody knows, every year, summertime usually when we have extra, we go through boards that are missing, any boards that are bad we replace, any cracked ones we remove. And throughout the year, Mr. Hale, students or staff, will bring to our attention other boards, so we'll replace them as needed. I know there was some questions previous. I did find that fund. I think it was for $50,000 in 2022. Right. So we ended up using. I think it was only for that. It was most walk up the stairs. That main walkway, the one had was completely replaced down to the metal. Got some supports. Probably the biggest projects inside in here. Mike probably knows.
Over 10 15 years ago, we were lucky to hire Charlie Armand Trucking to come in and use his labor. We bought all the supplies and did a complete frame. We primed and replaced all the boards.
Where we're at with maintaining it.
Do we have a total that we put into it? And do we also add up the man hours that we put into maintaining it?
So the man hours I have for the past couple of years, I've been really, strong about getting my staff to put in their hours and trying to keep up on it. But a lot of it is, verbal. I could guess for the summer at least we're about 100 hours of replacing boards, and it varies by year, depending on how many boards, but a few hours. So. But yeah.
What I wanted to do is just to say, okay, when I first came on the committee 10 years ago about replacing, so we did, and there's been a cost every year. So what I wanted to look at how much have we spent in the last 10 years, on that, so that we can say maybe we should have done it, or maybe this was a good, just keep support all this time. You add up the hours, the cost of the hours, and that it is still an ancient, feature system. I think that we would probably all come to the same conclusion that it might have been better. What are we doing now? So the opinion, I think, when we were at that meeting with Wilbraham Capital, they were saying, "Oh, it's a good thing that we didn't replace it. We saved." I think we did have more. I do appreciate it. It's great. I don't want to double count and whatever. Do we have an idea on what the total over the past 10 years?
Not over the past 10 years. 425 with boards. So I can do that configuration, but it's like I said, if we guessed here with just the summer alone, and then add throughout, we replace at least throughout the year, especially after the football season. I mean, we could figure that out.
If you even say roughly per year we spend this amount of money, we can throw a zero on it, and that's 10 years worth, and we can look at it that way. I'd like to know, has this been a smart move for us not to do this? It's been a costly move.
So 2024 and 25 have $4,719 that we spent for some hardware.
I think the argument that you're making, I think another avenue that makes it clearer, because I think, even though we have, strictly disciplined about segregating out all of the costs over the years, I think that it's in comparison with the replacement costs for the bleachers. I've gotten over the years are different estimates for replacements. Estimated, bleacher project included the elevator, all the things that folks were looking at the time. Extravagant was what.
So I'm fortunate to have had a conversation with the athletic. I would say it was a slightly expedition they did from about 2014 when they did a CPA application. It really they looked at more seating and no cutouts, and one with the middle of the bleachers to sort of walk through. And the two price ranges there, the cutouts, that's more seating or cost, $145,000, and the one for the fewer number of seats and seats, but a much just under $600,000 or $590 roughly, and so that was a more recent estimate that we had from Bracket from a little over a year ago has that number like 1.4 million. So it's a pretty noticeable cost the last 10 years or so.
correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that more recent estimate was about twice the cost. Took the increase.
That's correct. It was just bleachers, whereas to the project. So that was, there's 300 some odd thousand there for those amenities. But nonetheless, they're just appreciably more expensive now than it was.
Can you speak to, so I noticed various times of the year they get blocked, they get shut down. So I'm not sure how many times a year that happens. When do you deem, so I know last spring, for instance, Cape and people were not able to access the bleachers. So I know that may use them, sports teams are expected to not use them. And then also, being, ADA the bleachers.
So sorry, not ADA compliant, so I believe Mike was with.
That was back, I'm not sure if it was 14, maybe before 14. It was with Mike Roy here. They had proposed a room, shower areas, bleachers, brand new tables, brand new concessions, complete redo of that whole section through there. And we started getting CPA with it, but I don't really remember the price of the architect, but it was way over $1 million. That's for sure.
I was kind of going the direction of when they built the handicap accessible fueling station.
Yes.
So that was kind of like or so.
I would guess about 2016. I saw, I don't want to name the person, a blue from one of our two towns, and the person asked me about where the shower was. Like, there's no interest in proposing any bleachers that has locker rooms or shower room or a sauna or a trainer's room. The only thing we were proposing is to try and replace bleachers. And the problem is threefold. One, we talked about is the cost to maintain what we currently have. The boards, when I walk up to do the announcing, sometimes I get underneath my feet. That's one issue. The other issue is safety. And I know our taking a look at the structural safety, etc. Our safety issues around the gaps between the boards and where you sit. Very often during football games, kids slide through that gap to go down to the concession stand because it's quicker than trying to weave your way through to go. I see little guys, right, that bring little guys, make a game of it all game because the game out through the bottom, running around, sliding out through the bottom, etc. Those are some safety concerns that we have. And, when football game, I'm usually up with the kids to make sure that they're being appropriate and they're cheering. And kids in that corner and they're jumping up and down. I'm scared. So there's that. That's the safety one. Is really capacity. You know, talking about capacity. These were built 50, 60 years ago. Back when we had the original, and that was probably a sizable chance back then. Now, even though our school enrollment is smaller, the community that comes out to support a soccer game, or a football game, or watch the band perform, it's much larger. And I don't know what the capacity of our current stands are, but averaging 22 and looked at just football games, we're 757 paid tickets. Now that does the people who we let in free. So when we have like youth soccer night, if you wear your youth soccer uniform, kids will come to that. The youth football night or the flag football. So those are just paid tickets. And then you add into that. So our band has grown by 103% in the 2022. So what was used to be 40 or so, now up close. When we home game Friday, there'll be 100 band students in the stands that will cut off a large portion of the stand. So the issue is cost not in the street, is the extra building inspector, extreme, and then does the current capacity fit the community needs? Because remember that we're a joint town if we ever needed one. And I don't think those stands could support that. But the plan I also talked to the what organization that back to me, and I talked to the organization to say, if we were ever in a position to ask to give us a rendering and an estimate where we might be in position to go out for something like that, those organizations I've invited to participate. So they're going to get back to us on whether they're interested in participating and being part of the solution. So I think I needed that services communities and at the same time.
So to go back to quickly, we determine what areas are bad, what are going to be replaced, so squashing off those. And then as we have staffing doing it, we focus on summer maintenance help because it's just guys doing everything else at the same time. So that's why you see cost tape up at certain times. And that's why it's off pretty much the whole thing. So.
Yeah. Right now, your stands have no capacity. There's no like estimate of what they hold, and there's no safety number.
I had a number of almost 1,200 at one point. Somebody hired, I think he gave an estimate of
They just go what you have to board. You got about 900 chips.
And what are they for a new set of bleachers?
The proposal now is somewhere around 1290, as I recall. Kind of drawing, call it an architectural drawing, but didn't, but goes more broad. I've been to like Field in West Springfield. Their stands go from about the 10-yard line to the 10-yard line, but only maybe like those to support both home and away crowds on that one side. So it's a 12. You want me to read that?
I'll read it.
I can't see that.
It'll be 1,200 and companion seating of 12, so a total of 12.
Oh, that's close.
That current estimate.
And the number that we're seeing in our notes here, that's new.
That's what that is, the 1,294.
For a car.
Oh, for current or?
Whatever it says, this is half cut off.
I was able to find a page that wasn't, so. Companion 1,290.
We had talked, and I know miscommunication there, an understanding of what was going on, but there wasn't, so I'm not sure where we stand with that, but there was some talk that possibly or do something with that. Then the says they're not going to fall meeting. So we're in this now. My son Nicholas, he's at the ICP 8th grade at Jog, and he's Friday. I do trust the engineers from Wilbraham saying the bleachers. I just don't trust that the bleachers listen to Wilbraham engineers. I am so go to the game.
Has there been any response from, now that we were a fall, just out of curiosity, has there been, it was not for the purpose of the, but, holding one?
I have not received a response, any negative or negative. I have received a response that they're going to discuss it.
Okay. Did it on Monday? Okay. So, into the bleachers look like if they get replaced? Talking about you guys are keeping up with the bleachers and replacing the board, keeping them maintained.
It should be very little to nothing, because it'd be all wood structure.
Nothing for 5 years because they're new, or like nothing for 20?
We would be checking for tightness,
Not nearly as much as we do.
nothing compared.
Maybe,
And-
maybe washing at some point.
What would be the gap where a toddler could
I
potentially
think the
fall?
code is 4 inches right now, and we currently have in excess of.
I think
So there are gaps that are 8 size. So a child.
That's either railing, the top, and you have space from where the next one.
So when we triage trauma patients, try to ascertain, treat it, one of the things about fall is the distance. Fall over 15 feet is considered severe and automatically end up in the trauma room. Means that, there's a critically ill with potentially life-threatening. The areas of the bleachers where these 18-inch spaces, are they feet?
Yeah.
Close.
So the inspection company that came out has stated that they have many large falls. Some of the drop downs is
Almost 20. All right, so right now, the bleachers are not falling. Quite clearly, a toddler could fall and have injuries at any time.
An adult could too, through that space.
One would hope the adult be, but yes. But we can't blame a toddler or a young child for certain aspects of behavior, right?
Yeah.
Their developmental stage, so.
Gaps to the proposed newer high school stadiums. We're not looking at like a Texas, but just Pioneer Valley, absolutely in the steps, so there's no gaps where you're sitting, but there's movement behind you, so you can come up with a leaf blower, after. But the gaps they're talking about is the railing, and then also the railing. The gaps I'm talking about that game through is
How much is it, less than 4 inches,
Oh, yes.
or is it more than 4?
More than 4.
It's more than 4 inches,
Yeah.
So it made us bleachers were completely safe would be 100% completely wrong. I can see it, given the spaces that exist in the bleachers are a danger to children if children are in the bleachers, which is a school, so one would inherently have to expect that children will be in the bleachers. And I mean, we're just up to current building codes, right? We now understand and know that there are certain that leave children at risk for injury. And 25 years ago, they were probably excited to go from lawn chairs to something else. So,
I believe structurally sound.
and I'm ecstatic that they're not about to fall over.
But when you
But I'm
have
also-
students jumping up, I was going to Martin on Friday.
I think it's important so that it's not only the high school students in these bleachers. So whether it's community, I know there's pep rallies that are held, but also they have teams, like some of the other local teams also use the field, and they also hold tournaments at these fields. Players that come from all over that are also sitting on these bleachers. So it's really important to note that it's not just us members. There's that are accessing these bleachers, but could potentially be hurt.
That's a great point. The only reason I'm talking football is because it's Friday.
And I know.
So, elephant in the room here.
Because they have the space that the viewing, I don't know, the viewing that we built, the DA compliant viewing station, and where the bleachers sit, it doesn't allow for a lot of real estate for people to like bring your own chair. Like, you have a game, you watch track. Everyone can stand along the fence and root on the kids. Because of that space, it creates an issue. I guess you can move the clock operators to feel if you're closing the stands, you shouldn't have anybody up in the media booth. We have a sound input field level, so you can do the announcements from there. It's just going to create a nightmare for people. Because although we don't have the capacity, we're still getting, 800 people up in those stands. That is taking away from those people needing a chair or something to encapsulate the field. It also creates an issue in terms of how to ticket, because the minute you close down the stands, so people are going to develop the field all around, and they're going to become to access that. So to charge a ticket is going to be hard to maintain. Another factor is game officials usually do not like anyone behind the goal post, hockey goal, or soccer, whatever the object of the game is, they don't like people in that. So that creates only two sides of the rectangle that can be used. So it would be extremely challenging.
What's the liability, do you think, for,
I'm not an attorney, but, if someone's going to sue the towns and district for a child that fell and ended up injured, and let's say a week in the intensive care unit, talking about $1,000, adds up quick, and that's not even taking into account pain and suffering for the parent, for the parents. I'm just talking about medical expenses and costs. So there's that significant. So I was going to ask Doug or so the money for tickets, which I know isn't a lot, what account does that go in?
So against that, so those revenues as the participation fees that we charge, and so it goes in the athletic recruitment fund. We use it for the athletic program, so we buy equipment, replacement gear, that sort of thing. So it's to help promote the program, and that's a break-even sort of arrangement from year to year. There's really not a lot of resource there. As far as other resources we have,
So we could choose to divert all those funds to the Minnetonka Stabilization Fund, and then that fund fully from operational as part of our budget. Correct?
you could.
Like, let's say we're going to be completely, we're all going to advocate for, garner the support of the towns to do the right thing, which is to save up money for 3 years and get the bleachers. We're going to be pessimists, and let's say that we fail to garner support for the right thing. Perhaps converting all fees from to the stabilization fund, and in 15 years, we might have a down payment. The bleachers, we'd have the money to replace the 2020. Of course, it would be it would cost $5 million to do the bleachers. I'm just in my mind. I don't. It's not a practical way to get to the total that's needed. But on the other hand, at least I've been hitting the wall. I've spoken with individuals. I'm just absolutely how little support from the town officials I to for replacing is. Even when I've the unofficial proposal I've been trying to say is, okay, it was a fire truck, and a fire truck needs to be replaced. The town's usually stabilization fund for 2-3 years in a row, knowing that the money's there. That okay, in 2027 we're going to. But I have not been any support for that. And I've talked to. We've not had a financial yet. So, and I know that we're struggling with the Wilbraham Select Board.
Important though to say, if you divert all the profit when you run a Tuesday night field hockey game might be in the hundreds of dollars, like $100, $80, because what comes out of that cost to have the field, paying the officials, paying the game operator, whoever's doing it, whatever. I don't get paid when I do it. No. Staff, the operational staff, the ticket, the people to walk around, security, thing. And like Friday night, we were talking about 3 police officers, game staff. There's about 6 officials who follow. So although there's a higher volume, Friday night profit and loss wise, we might.
No, but my thought, my proposal would be that that the towns
Gotcha. Got it.
are paying a ticket price, they should have a bleachers at the same. So, so it would be something. The school committee is empowered, right? Even though it would take an impossible long time, it would certainly increase the operational budget for the school district. Go to town meeting.
Yeah, I just didn't want you to have an view of how much we're paying.
No, I know that there's no profit, and there should be, right?
No.
We're trying, the accomplishment is the experience for the kids, right? So, if it's not in the red, I mean, phenomenal, right? So, but
like a down, you gotta run, already hired all these people, the officials are showing up, you run in the red. But the thing that I think is important to talk about is when we talk about, I am a parent of a football player, and I'm going to see my kid play. But Dave is a parent of cross country. We don't have that cross country. There's no monitor or funnel. So the hockey, football get hit up a lot more. Track, those kind of things. So it's just worth.
If I can jump in here for a sec. So as a school committee, we can raise money, correct? We can get a loan. We do something like this. We have to go through both towns. Of course, I mean, that's important. Support it, but it's something that we can initiate, isn't that correct? So if there's no fall town meeting, we could potentially, and then by taking on that risk by putting and paying money every year. Doug, what would that entail?
So if you guys authorize for any purpose, well, not any purpose, but purpose is certain. Notice to the it's sort of a rule or a pocket that works. So you send notice within a period of time. They then have the option to essentially have the opportunity to, if they don't call town meeting. It's pocket approved. They're on the hook for that, and it is apportioned by virtue of the rules of the agreement for the cost. The things in cooperation so that you don't end up having, some net zero situation happen. So your operating budget takes a huge hit, but at the same time, yeah, you can vote. It's going to be on the agenda and that sort of thing, but it's possible operates best when you line it up with capital planning of this house. So thinking about their costs and their burden. It does shift it though, because the thing is, you authorize 1 year, you're not going to borrow for like another year. So interest and payments, are a couple of years away. So you don't have to have the money, and it's always, you bond it over a period of time. Per year amount is more modest, and you spread that over many, many years. So you pay interest on that. The last 20 years or so, interest was pretty low, but the last 4 or 5% now. But it's one argument, borrowing, whether it be municipal projects like this, is that the people that benefit from it access that over a long period of time. And you have more people that get benefit from it participate back of that loan. So and it does, share the burden across more over time.
So we decided the debt, and one of the select boards from one of the towns disagreed. The fall town meeting.
This would be something that would have to be on the this evening, just to be very clear.
So, I'm at a humorous point, but I'm only bringing it up because I can't discuss and it's a violation of freedom. Ironic, they won't. Then, and they might if the conditions change. It doesn't change the fact that 1.4 is a big piece of cake, right? For both towns, to pony up their share of. And, maybe with operation and talking with the members of the towns, maybe what we do is, you know, a 10% down the rest of the job kind of thing. That is the right thing for the towns, and for the school, to have it not be devastating plan, any police cruisers, fire this, I mean, they've got a whole list of schools of capital stuff. So things that are done. So you know, they don't have that kind of cash, and most I think like use their free cash to deal with the capital expenses, to not have, you know, increases in taxes going expenses in addition to. So I haven't really but bottom line is interests are great. You know, are going down, and inflation has kind of horrible cost level, but it's right. It just, you know, it just stops going up. So, but I don't know how thinking about that, maybe the right thing for the bleachers is at least finance part of it, maybe towns.
I'm kind of curious if people aren't behind, you know, bleachers are not up to code. So I'm wondering if there's any kind of document of like they're not compliant or up to code.
Right in the packet that the company that we come out and inspect.
I'm just trying to that could be more presented so we understand what this is. I'm just trying to think of a way that it could be presented to the public so that people are behind it, because you have already met with those more clearly understand the safety issue for the bleachers and to get more people behind. If you know something with their bleachers. So I didn't do any.
We didn't get a dedicated stream of funding tied to the fair share amendment, and I think some folks would say that the increases in Chapter 70 are their way of enacting partially funding for that. So I think, I'm not sure what that was in the other community or reference. We didn't receive anything like that.
I will show you. As it advertised that we got it. All right.
If committee, is it possible for you guys to share the entirety of the comments, the lists, the costs, the diagrams, the pictures of the broken down bleachers with the members of the select boards for both towns and with the members of the advisory and with the members of Wilbur and FinCom?
You don't have any pictures of broken.
I can work with you on that.
I'm looking at pictures here in the
We could send it in advance of the next.
So the pictures that you have in your packet are from the inspection before. We repaired a lot of that. So.
Oh, God. Need new pictures of new broken stuff.
The Fridays.
But I think before we have it's important to share this with them. Sometimes I will comments that nobody cared, so even though I'm pretty sure that we did. The more we do that way, the better we communicate, unless people object.
And I'd be willing to give them free tickets to the next home football game and preserve them on the top row.
Are you buying them?
I'll buy them.
And I'll go back to a suggestion that I've made in jest, but almost seriously, if we're going to have a meeting with them, we might want to consider having the meeting on. What that means for, I'm sorry, maybe football field.
Just lastly, to get off on my side on this, so there's a lot of things that keep me up at night with being on the school committee, and this is definitely
help the city. And I was, I spoke at the select board the next day, said that it's structurally sound. Committee member asked a question about capacity, and I didn't hear a solid answer on that. With 1,000 pounds sounds, if it's 30,000 pounds. So that, and then the other issues that were brought up, gaps, was a serious fall, which now that that's been talked about here publicly, we've got to take to either people close the bleachers or close a portion of the bleachers. Have you looked? It has to be fixed. Is there a fix to address the safety issues that the doctor brought up? And as I
would say no. My to go past 30% of the assessment or whatever you're trying to repair, you have to make. You would spend a lot of money between what Steve was saying, you know, under the walk-on, the railing systems.
Can I just ask
a lot of money is a statement, but of course, could you develop? Because otherwise we're shooting in the dark here. And the most to me, and the reason for us to have a fall town meeting is safety issues that were that I was relieved when they said it's structurally sound. I hear a figure about what's the capacity that it's going to be structurally sound. If those bleachers were full to capacity, does that exceed the that makes it structural? I don't know, but it's a question I.
In my mind, be an engineer that's qualified to do that. I'm certainly not.
Can I ask a question? Final question on one of your prior questions. Were you saying that it's your opinion attempting to close the gaps he's talking about would threshold at which compliance would be triggered you then to have to everything else in the bleachers?
That's my understanding in past with capital projects. But that, you know, in my mind, tech would actually determine properly closing these gaps.
Answer to Mr. Collins' question, you'd have to know what would the cost of all the rest of the ADA upgrades be that because you hit that threshold.
Correct.
All the gaps, at least on this one, and nobody's fallen through yet. But certainly, you know, somebody if it was up near the top, they could fall through. The minimum would say anybody within 3 years old should be at least signs warning that at least be something. Shows how the gaps, the way the whole thing's been started. Might as well rebuild it. Look at that.
Well, and I think that's what you're right. You know, if you make them ADA compliant, I think you would be over $1 by the time you're building a secondary structure to the score of the access with wheels, correct? Which is what would happen. You have to put new bleachers behind you. The equivalent, right? So, yeah.
Score box down.
Well, I guess you do, then you have to score box. Demolish a bunch of bleacher space.
for being here tonight.
Thank you.
So, the discussion of the Thursday, September.
Correct. And I think we've already kind of gotten into some of the reason why this is on the anything you wanted us to send in advance or any other preparation for that meeting to talk to each other.
Board that day was not good. Though it appears you have not officially heard, so.
That's why I believe that is a date that identified as good.
He said that he couldn't make that date up.
Yeah.
That's correct, but
The Wilbraham.
okay, well, we need to reschedule. I will let you know. I have not received invitations to that.
Is there any, like, added?
I would let, you know, if the board's okay, I think that there should be a present options for the bleachers. Maybe not even, should we, you know, you replace the bleachers, curtain, the town over a couple of years, and, curtain number 2, the town take on deck for the rest. Option number 3, right? Unless
I agree with the presentation, and I understand the packet. It tells us what's spread out, and a way that it could be presented to the public on the codes and the pictures. But I like they've been trying to for over a decade. We can, and we how long aren't new replacements. So even waiting a nervous support of the towns and the people in the towns, but I'm also very nervous about the safety aspect of it. I really appreciate some kind of presentation where it's more efficient and easily understood. And
I think that Steve had made 3 things that they're very concerned with, which is the safety issues with the capacity. I think those are things that can understand, but people don't know about the safety bleachers if they've never been on. I think they're fine, so would be important points to bring up.
because even showing the pictures, like they're just going to be saying, yeah, that's the picture of the bleachers. They're not really pointed out with the picture of the bleachers. It needs to be explicitly
And the code
explained,
violations.
and the code violation.
Code reads.
I think without covering up all the pictures, a net on that tie in to the bottom and stack like that probably wouldn't be very expensive. That would prevent loss.
I think it's as a safety measure. That was
temporary fencing was added because children were being under the bleachers but not falling.
Yeah, this would be underneath.
In there, Rich, I think you have to be very careful because the intention would be to catch a child, but catch their head, or if you only catch
Like a whole
leg, it could actually worsen the injury with a fall. Something like 20 feet. So
near
you
the
have
top.
to be very, really tight tensile straps. Once again, you're getting into costs that are going to be, I think.
So for the multi-town meeting, I definitely want in the middle school on the agenda and all the information we have about air quality. And this isn't the appropriate time, but we also have to start talking about to alleviate the boringness at the middle school, to make room for more hands-on, because exposure to hands-on learning is extremely. There are jobs out there going wanton because we're not exposing our young children to hands-on carpentry, electricians, heat conditioning. It's almost as hard to find a doctor, which is getting pretty hard now. So I think giving the kids a full and complete education, we don't have the capacity to do it right now, but we should put together some sort of a group from both towns to work with us to come up with a plan to address it and stop ignoring it.
We can add that to it.
I don't know if you noticed in the Long Meadow Town meeting just voted with a new middle school committee, which I think is still has to go to the polls.
It's 3-1, Lisa.
But two smaller middle schools which are in bad shape. Stuff like that. But I'm not advocating that as a solution for us. I don't know what's the best solution for us. People, you know. Another question following up on your. Where do we stand with the air handlers and stuff? We were going to study to figure out what needed to be done, right? To temporize so that we understood the situation, both temporarily and long term.
That was a concept that we've discussed. The building by town staffers. That is something that has to be appropriated by, one of the items that's on the draft agenda we sent out to the meeting. So my thought is that in that multi-board meeting, we were asking about could the fall town meeting include in order to have a source of funding to conduct such a study.
What are these kind of studies? What are these kind of studies?
We tried to get a ballpark figure. Some folks who would want to take a look at our doors. And so I don't want to say this is correct.
Holy guacamole. Okay.
Any other agenda items for that meeting?
I agree with John's suggestion.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll continue. Next, we'll discuss the Attorney Sweeney's opinion process.
So I did have to talk to the attorney for the school committee regarding a question posed about the transfer process, specifically whether the school could sort of issue a blanket authority in Hamden. The advice that I received was that it would be best for the school committee not to change past practice, and that the way really to resolve this issue would be to address it through the, which would be using for a fall town meeting.
Okay, any questions or further on that? Okay, we will continue with Superintendent of Finance, Operations, and Human Services.
Hello there. So under my section of budget, or the agenda is, the monthly budget update. It hasn't been a long last met, and not a lot's transpired. I have a brief memo in your packet for that. I think what I'll share with you, there's no overly jarring sort of thing that's happened. Last year at this time, we were dealing with an issue and the cost of that, whether insurance would cover, et cetera. We don't have anything in our budget like that. We have things that are unanticipated, both positive and negative. Yes, we do. Whether they're significant, yet, it's hard to tell. So we're still in the budget. In the budget cycle, we're getting our hiring, although we still are challenged to get certain positions filled. I'll give you a fuller report on that at early meeting in October. We'll get a clearer sense of where we sit relative to that. There's nothing really sort of jumps out too much. There's a couple right there things that I point out. There's some there was a remark in some supplemental budget from the state. It did a budget for and this is what remember Lisa was talking about, which is a supplemental budget for fiscal 25, and they leveraged some of the fair share amendment fund that supplemental budget. As we did get some technology for $92,500, so we are going to use part of what you see in red that are technology, because that's we bought the stuff. Now we're waiting to get the ability to process. So, I reached out recently. It's still in process, so we'll, from a cash flow standpoint, we're not fine, but it's that in order to make the whole relative to our other purchase we are anticipating is helpful, and I think that's what you were alluding to with your comment there. I don't really have anything else to add. Budget update, is there any questions that anyone has relative to that?
What is the employee retirement of the $17,000?
So employee retirement, so we have an assessment Camden County Retirement System, and we paid all up. And so our budget was a smidge off from what but not. There are others that, like our software, so we sort of essentially zero out that line really early, and actually have spent the money. There are others that take longer than that, but that's one that we pay up front. And we actually get 2% discount by paying it by the end of July. So that. So the next thing is compensation for staff. So several of our different staff, we've looked at the rates in a while. So you have in relative to those current rates and next, what we're suggesting as a rate for the years. The memo, it's partly to attract and maintain and support our staff in those substitutes. And so the one that's a little different than that is the project. What we're doing there is the number of that person, and so we're sort of trying that increase of that responsibility. But most of the rest of them are other kind of temporary type of thing. We need to be competitive. I mean, not that we're necessarily competitive, but you make $18 an hour at McDonald's. This is a McDonald's, so I don't want to apples and oranges in a lot of ways. We need to acknowledge that people to help us out. We have to pay something that makes yes, it is those positions, and so we would want and then we'll put them in effect.
I have a question about the project lead the way coordinator. Would be in Appendix B.
It's grant funded, if I'm correct. No. Oh, right. It could. Is it currently? But it could be subject to negotiation to add it. And that might be too, but that would be subject to.
Would anyone like to make a motion or have any additional questions for Doug?
Move to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
Closing again, this will also require of the committee. We currently have different accounts in our student activities. Either, some of it's the class up, so those classes graduate, zero out. But some of the others are clubs that ran for a while or low enrollment, so they've not sustained. We have a list of 8 clubs that have been identified as being books, and this is a step in that process. All of these have zero balances, which makes of these that's identified here. Which one is it now? Which is the class of 2022. This has an outstanding check, and so that will go to the unclaimed funds, which on the TV commercials is called fine man. So that's where it goes. So we send the money, they put it up and post it for us. But otherwise, this is mostly there and allow us to move forward with our student activities with just the active clubs.
Motion to approve. Second in the memo.
Questions or discussion? Okay.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries.
And so, here, because we talked about this a little bit more, the process in particular for adding new student activity where they make sure it has got, sufficient and you guys for approval. And so of new clubs that are middle school clubs on the first page. There's a couple for the high school. And that is the sort of fuller list of activities and acknowledgement of those currently. Approval of new clubs in the high school. Existing clubs just to sustain them in their roles from
So didn't we just close the World Language Club, and then there's a World Language Club? Close DPS that we number 8, World Language Club, and then now number 3085, World Language. Not sure what the FT means.
There's probably a distinction between them, and therefore one should be closed.
Or maybe one. As described.
Any questions? Like, did those need to be two for middle school and then a motion for high school?
I think you can do it in one.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion.
So the last one on the list is a sliding scale for tuition for program operates with grant funding for students, but some of the students that serve as in that are we charge tuition for. We've not changed, or nor do we suggest a change in base tuition rate for the year. If you're a full day student for a full year, it's 66. We prorate that over monthly. Actually, you do a deposit and pays monthly. If you do the half day, it's 30. Haven't changed in a couple of years. We don't suggest changing those rates. However, there are times when we get questions and the cost and their income level. So what we brought is a I don't want to say simple, but somewhat structure of approaching this, provide some discount to that have some to have their kids participate and afford the preschool. And so SMI formally defined their state meeting, which includes so a fairly high Mass is a much more expensive place to live, and so state are there in Eastern Mass, and it's based on household size. So household, the higher your monthly income, it's a percentage of the state median income. If you're at 50% or below, it's at 50% or below, we're going to discount the by 25%. If you're at 51 and 85, we'll discount 50. And if you're at 85, the full amount. So we're wanting you to consider as a formal structure for approaching questions that come up. I mean, anyone asked this, and so I think this gives us a consistent and programmatic way to the past where people have wanted to participate and maybe not with any discount that could be afforded to them. And we've also probably had circumstances where there was a potential for a discount, made other choices in their personal finances to.
We have special needs students in the preschool, and we're receiving funding from the state.
We receive some funding from the state, but students who are identified as special education preschool students, some tuition exclude their special education services if they are full-time, it calls for full programming, then they do not pay tuition at all. And we cover the cost that's not covered by federal and state funding.
I understand the different columns, going left to right.
So the monthly income, you chop. Well, that's fine. It makes no sense because the part that explains what differentiates got lopped off when I put this in place. So in the top grid, the second column, which just says monthly income, and it says up to $4,468. Of 2. Then it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then on the second row we go 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
That makes sense.
So that got removed from the chart, but the household size for those that have monthly income as the header. And I'm terribly sorry that got trimmed off into the memo.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the HWRSD preschool program for the fiscal year 2026 sliding fee scale.
Aye. Is anyone opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. We will take a 5-minute break. Back for public comment.
I'm gonna tell Kyle to go get some.
I just want a shadowy silhouette of mine.
Apparently I missed one.
Yeah, no problem at all. Try to get these, see whether you
Even when I die, Okay.
I think we have one more.
I think he took it.
Oh.
You took a
No,
job.
but there's a whole.
John Parker? Adoption. Here on the website.
You can have your photo taken.
All right, I'll
I don't know what's going to happen to it.
What do you mean?
What? We're going to get with that. I just know.
You should see the surgical residence heads. How did you find out about that already?
Not everyone.
Well, it's a
Silhouette.
I do not want my picture. Why not? I'm just down. Just put a stock photo of a figure. Can you do that? Yes.
Did he take one?
Thank you.
Try it, and you can tell not to use.
I mean, if it was caricature, acting caricature. If each of us had a caricature, that would be cool.
Remember those things?
Yes.
They were pretty cool.
I had a teacher emoji for during COVID. Everybody had their own.
You're even better now. You have more choices.
Yes.
Scarily looks like the person.
Letters right there. Make a verbal change from my report. Mouth words, not words.
She's a
time for public comment. To the microphone, state your name and affiliation with the district, and just make sure that you press the button.
It's me again. And just to add, I've already stuff that's talking. So, I'm the only licensed school library teacher here at Regional High School. I am advocating for Camden Regional School District to build a library program, additional library teachers and materials for teaching and learning. Similar to last year when I came to you, I'm going to reiterate that unless a teacher chooses to collaborate with an HWRS K through 12, never encountering the learning, school library teacher, never understanding the value of libraries or school libraries. HWRS sees the benefit of our investments in new curriculum, teaching methods that support better learners and behaviors. You guys have put a lot. However, we experienced the middle school year gap without a library surplus for materials, book reading habits developed in K through 5 have been wiped away. High school every day. No complaint amongst teachers. We know students entering high schools are reading. They are especially not reading books. Using a wider lens, that students are reading less at a time when especially reading for understanding and development is at its greatest. Without the skills for gaining, understanding, and developing perspective, students are often left taking on the perspectives of excerpts and small little clips. Reading books is blamed on screen time, methods of cueing and decoding, social media, and others, but also education is using more digital content and the use of excerpts for test programs. And of course, the pandemic is to blame. So research also indicates physically changing there is research on physical change of the brain when it comes to time. The brain changes have had negative effect on cognition like language, criticism, thinking, empathy, and emotional regulation. Specific are weakened and difficulty capacity to build a book some of these changes. Finally, I need all of you fundamentally believe in what I'm saying. Your advocacy is start to talk about the libraries, and you all have had me stop you talking about libraries. However, when the advocacy is going, however, start small with a committee state of our district libraries. Talk to teachers about the state of book reading within our students and that have had a robust library program with a library teacher in every school. That also, because you also better understand. And finally, a plan that makes sense in order to rebuild strong that my children experienced here in this district. Something. The cost is more than just money. So, I'm here to help. And I'm seriously between 2 and 4 years. And then that's so years of experience. We have to start somewhere.
Thank you very much.
Is there interested in making public comment this evening? Okay, so, we will continue with subcommittee update. Curriculum, no update. Planning committee update. Finance operations and technology subcommittee.
No update.
LCBEC Collaborative Representative, no. Negotiation Subcommittee, no at this time.
John correctly identified the agenda policy that we're supposed to be reading through the list. So we have a second reading on a policy that we've not read. The IJ and use of technology in instruction, second reading. We have not had this year, but we have one coming up.
Yes, we have a lot of work to do with the new competency determination regulations. To meet with the department, the disciplines where the courses, the competency determination are taught, so that we can develop a plan that we can implement into a policy to bring to the subcommittee. Once I've had an opportunity to work that out with the faculty, I will set up. We have other policies to consider, but that one actually has a we have education website and has a lot of things you have to do that we don't do with any other policy. December, so that's kind of my focus right now.
There's not been a meeting, but there's going to be one coming up soon, out of schedule because of some property consideration or something like that. I don't know. We got to meet and sign something.
So, and there's nothing on the superintendent evaluation this time, so we'll move on to the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Thank you. I think we're off to a good start this year. I'll start with the enrollment. September 1st enrollment is 2,825 students. As I mentioned last month, I thought the August report was low because a number of registrations had yet to come in. We added 29 students between August 1st and September 1st. I think our numbers are not accurate completely. I feel that in grades 1 through 12, numbers are probably solid, but I believe we'll see more kindergarten and preschool reflected in our first report, because this was taken before the first day of school for either of those grades, and people have been registering students right up to the minute before the start of school and even after the last minute of the start. Expect some growth in October. And then moving on to transportation. While it is by no means perfect, I believe that our new transportation system has resulted in a marked improvement in transportation reliability. Today is the 9th school in our district. Through the first 9 days last year, we had 16 routes delayed due to staff shortages. This year, there have been 4. Aaron makes these little charts to show things are working. So that's been really good. The funds have been just fine, as have the first and second tiers in Wilbraham. We're still making a few on the third tier in Wilbraham, which is the hardest, because that's where buses have to go to all 3 elementary schools. So a delay in one of the schools, other schools that have yet to be picked up. But we're getting that dialed in. We have routes that now we can tell have been checked on time. Not extremely late, but late by maybe 4 minutes, 5 minutes. We also have a number of routes that we are showing early all the time, so we're transferring some streets over from the later routes to the early routes to just take care of that. There is a little bit more difficulty in the afternoon. I think that has to do with the fact that we have more pickups in the afternoon, and that's some bottlenecks on Stony Hill Road, which impact the ability of buses to get to all their tiers, because in many cases those cars are going to multiple schools just as the buses are. But things are getting better. I've been at open houses so far this year. I like what I'm hearing at the open houses. Teachers are genuinely happy with the cognitive effective skills their students are bringing to the learning environment. Really hearing teachers talking about respectful behaviors they're seeing for students. Some of the social emotional learning that we've worked so hard on the past several years is looking like it's starting to show some results. Like the students are coming in higher academic vocabulary that allows them to access some of the concepts that are presenting to them more easily than was the case in the past. So I just think that it's really good. There's I believe there's a lot of optimism among faculty and staff. The one concern I have at this time, something that may have to an earlier discussion tonight, something that came up 2 days before the popsicle party agreement, when it was discovered that the play structure had been weakened in places due to aging and to use. So the estimate of repairs is not, but is not so. It's on. It does raise features about whether it'd be better to invest in aging structure or seeking a replacement. And if replacement is the path, how do we provide recess while financing arranged? So that is something the committee aware of. That really came as a surprise to us. And so that's something that I hope we can find a solution to really quickly, because there aren't a lot of other for play at Green Meadows. So plan included some data. SQM parent survey last year, like this. The items measure teacher-parent communication, school-family communication, the extent to which parents feel valued as members of the school community. Received responses from 120 parents in all 6 schools. All schools, communications from teachers and from the school was rated in the approval or ideal range. The plan calls for us to develop a means for two-way communication with stakeholders this year, but given this evidence, I wonder whether this still needs to be a part of it, or whether this initiative could be withdrawn to allow me to pay greater attention to areas where we're farther from the approval mark. So I'll just end my report with a request for on that point.
Well, you rated really well, and you actually also addressed that, right, with the upgrades to the website. Communication is the nature of the upgrades to the website, so maybe we can get this done. I don't know the appropriateness of those. And then, not to go on too different topics, about the play structures in Green Meadows. Didn't they just add a handicap accessible one and funded with CPA funds?
That's correct. They added a glider. This is their jungle gym thing. It was discovered that in the bridge going between two structures, there was some weakness, and I think some other weak points have been. So I'm going to take a look at it and see what the repairs are.
So would it repair the funds?
We've had great success in for playground replacements. That's kind of the question that we're right now, like, you know, how much do we want when replacement might be the ultimate solution? Also, knowing that is like, is there to at least get the safe conditions to play on it? Now it's not usable.
We're only talking about another month and a half, and then even if we have it in our hand right now, before
I
I guess I just would say that communication is the cornerstone of trust, and caution against taking your, so to speak, with regards to communication. With is a thing. I think you should still. And we might specifically add changes to the regional agreement we're working on. I haven't found one community, even the most avid that has any idea of any of the changes that we've done. I know we feel we've communicated, we have done that, but the message I don't think is getting. So, just caution.
Just to respond to that, there are a number on the to talk about the region, basically trying to get it done, maybe refocus instead of just communicating with families about the progress of their students, which is basically, I think, work on trying to get this regional agreement change across the goal line. That makes sense.
I just think that, I don't close the door on it. I think it needs to be revisited. Staff's changed 2 or 3 years down the road. You have a whole new setup. So, I mean, I think it's got to be ongoing. Met the goal at this point in time, and not abandoning going back to revisit it because things change. Staff changes, parents change. You don't want to let this get away from you. That's the thing, to have that good relationship, communication with the parents. And I don't think we just can take it that way. I mean, periodically, we got to go back and visit it again.
What do you mean by taking it off or redirecting your attention?
So what I mean is that plan asks to create a new way of communication with holders. I'm not sure that we need a new system. I'm not trying to stop communication and trying to be transparent and all that, but maybe the systems we have right now, and so just those and making sure we utilize those rather than trying to reinvent something. Initiative of a new way of communicating.
So you're not looking to stop communication. Deliver information to families and
That is
stakeholders. Okay. You're going to continue working with what we have and continue.
I don't know if you're using it yet, but testing which is almost like a Facebook feed from the school. And that means I can come from the school, from the kid, together on your phone, push notifications, all kinds of